rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Yeah, welcome back to Rebel Force Radio. Very special episode this week. We decided to go live. Yeah. You can see how the sausage gets made. We're going to record a very typical, by typical I mean excellent, edition of Rebel Force Radio, but why not throw the cameras on and do it together? Plus, we've had such a great run of guests in the cantina 2 weeks ago with Todd Stashwick from Picard, last week with Jeff Yorks. How could we follow that up? We followed up with you all. You're our guest in the cantina this week. So grateful that you're joining us if you're listening to the show live. If you're listening on delayed and downloaded podcast, welcome to you also. We got a great show for you this week. We got some news headlines. We also got some Star Wars in pop culture, a couple of items that we've been just chomping at the bit to get to. But as I say, with these great interviews and stuff, kind of had to push things to the side. But we're bringing them out on the front burners this week. And we will be taking your phone calls. That's right. We're going to throw the switchboard open. We've got our call screener, Tyler Page. He's here. And so if we're talking about a topic and that is something you want to weigh in on, by all means, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Of course, participate in the chat. That's always welcome. We have looks like some of our regulars are here. Hello to Tanya and Ming-Na Wen. Peter Besser is here. Jeff Holland, Connor Ferguson, Turtle Wars. So hello to all of you. Some familiar faces if you've been catching any of our after shows that we did. Those are going to be coming back here before too long. AHSOKA's going to be on the air. We're going to be doing those after shows, but we're glad you're here. And someone else that I'm always glad he's here. I know you're glad he's here. And that's, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. All right. Great interview guests in the cantina lately. Check. You're the guest this week. You in the listening audience. Check. Shout out to the regulars. Check. All right. Jason said everything I was going to say in my intro, too.
Never. No, that's impossible. It's impossible. I know that.
Leaving me with nothing but a chut, y'all. So we're back. We're here. We're ready to do RFR. And yeah, we thought it would just be fun. A little twist. Do it live. Count you guys in on the show. This is no after show. We don't have a singular focus for this week. Except for the wars.
There was no before show, so there's no after show.
But there will be a middle of the show. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
The middle of the show. I see.
The middle. It's like the center of an Oreo cookie. You know, you just want to scrape it up with
part. You know, I knew somebody. You're not going to believe this. But whenever anyone mentions Oreos, I always have to bring this up. Because this is honest to God, true story. I knew somebody who had an older brother. And he used to go through the Oreos. He'd break open the Oreo, lick out the cream, stick them back together, and put them back in the bag. What kind of animal is this? This is true. This is true. That's like something Wayne would have done to Kevin on the Wonder Years, you know, like that big brother nastiness. But can you imagine?
My house, that was a page out of the Little Brothers book.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah. Billy Mack. He was notorious for destroying desserts of all shapes and sizes. You know, you get a box of the Fannie Mae candy there or whatever kind of candy you got. He'd poke his finger in all of them to try to find the certain flavor he wanted.
I can't
open up the box and there'll be mashed candy.
Oh, gross.
With a couple missing, you know.
So apologies if you're having a late dinner here as you're listening to Rebel Force Radio. But Hey, you know what? Since we've got everybody joining us, this would be a good time to remind them about all the great things happening over on Patreon.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff going on Patreon all the time. We got ad-free podcasts, early bird releases, exclusive podcasts like RFR Q&A, Babu Freaks, and RFR RPG, full show video, hangouts. We got a hangout coming up pretty soon. You can only find out about it at RFR on Patreon. Latest episode of RFR Q&A, number 168, features the best and the worst of the Clone Wars. We've done a scientific study, including a breakdown on spreadsheets.
Wow.
So we'll be able to tell you the best and the worst, and that's with Jeff Holland. We're pairing beer with Star Wars once again, and this time we're pairing beers with each of the Star Wars sequel films, Rogue One, Solo, and the Clone Wars. So the question is, will each beer go down smoothly, or will some of them leave a bitter aftertaste? Well, you have to listen to find out. And that's co-hosted by Peter Beiser. Of course, so much stuff going on Patreon all the time. It's a great place to stay in touch with the RFR community. And you want to go to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. That's what you want to do.
That's exactly what you want to do. And you can always find the banner ad there at rebelforceradio.com if that's easier for you to find it. But, well, let's get right to it. We've got some business we want to get to, so let's start off with news headlines.
News for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right, as we mentioned last week, we lost one of our own with the passing of Ray Stevenson, very talented actor and a guy that just seemed so effusive in his excitement to be in Star Wars once more. Of course, he got his start in Star Wars as Gar Saxon, the voice of Gar Saxon in Star Wars Rebels, passed away, unfortunately, at a very young age. He is set to appear in AHSOKA Season 1 that will be airing this August as Baylan Skoll. And Jim, the note you passed on to me says this might be his final interview. Is that true? Or certainly one of his last interviews?
That's how Entertainment Tonight is promoting it.
Uh-huh.
They released footage of Ray Stevenson being interviewed at Star Wars Celebration in London last April. So he was part of the line, the media line moving through. So maybe Entertainment Tonight were the last ones in line. I don't know how they can actually qualify it because it's not an exclusive interview.
It wasn't a sit down. It was part of the,
it was part of a junket,
Right.
And so whether or not it is the final interview, it's among his final interviews, I would say. I don't know how Entertainment Tonight qualifies that. Start thinking about that right as that news intro was playing. I'm like, it's his final interview. I bet Swank's going to have questions about that. I'm not sure Entertainment Tonight is really certified but they're running with it. They're saying it's his final interview. So they were there in London. And what I find interesting about this clip we're going to watch and listen to, he really goes into describing his character a bit more than I've heard him described. And I think there's clues. I think there's hints he's dropping in here. What do we know about Baylan Skoll? Not much, other than the fact that they've alluded to him maybe being sort of a little good, a little bad, a little light, a little dark.
Yeah.
Kind of like an Oreo cookie, So that's Ray Stevenson. And so let's listen to this clip and see if we can pick out any hints about what we can expect from his character in AHSOKA.
This character is completely different from somewhere that you're not used to. He doesn't adopt the sort of foundations of the Kurosawa-based movies. The katana-style Japanese fighting. He's much more, I say, much more aligned with medieval swordplay. So there is a completely different style. So when he goes up against Ahsoka, quite a few days, there is a clash of culture as well as, and well, who wins? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But there is definitely a huge sort of a huge separation from where their worlds originate. So these two satellites crash in, and you got this dynamic that drives the story. It's just very, very thrilling.
So there are a few things to pick out of there. Most notably, we know that they clash sabers. So there's definitely going to be a duel between Ahsoka and Baylan Skoll. Is the duel going to be over a misunderstanding when they first meet, maybe? Or is it going to be a difference in philosophy? He mentions they come from different worlds, very different worlds, which tells me that somehow Baylan Skoll might be associated with the world between worlds, and he gets pulled out of his element and into the Ahsoka era.
Ooh, I like that. I like that idea.
With his orange saber.
Gets trapped in another dimension, another universe, something along those lines.
He talks about the fighting style of the character, how we consider Jedi, the way they use lightsabers and stuff, that's based in Japanese martial arts and Kurosawa films, that feudal Japanese era with the shoguns and the all of that stuff. So he's saying
was always George's. I mean, it was always George's idea, or at least it was originally, that the lightsabers would have a real weight to them. That's why he had the actors holding them with both hands. I mean, Vader was the only one that was really badass enough in the original trilogy to kind of do that one-handed moves. But and then with the prequels, they started getting into different fighting styles and different swordsmanship, and they sort of abandoned that. Then they sort of brought it back. I remember in Rebels where Sabine was struggling with, because we would have these conversations with the weight of the saber, and Filoni threw it back and said, well, that was part of George's original vision of these weapons. And of course, through the Force and through training and all of that, you would be able to wield them, and the weight would be lessened, I suppose.
And the samurai would fight with a two-handed style, and and that's largely what we associate with Jedi and the way they use the lightsaber. But this guy, he's saying that his approach to saber dueling comes from a more medieval place,
right?
Like a Viking or something. And that's why I kind of think he's out of his element.
Yeah.
I think World Between Worlds might be pulling this guy into the Ahsoka era. And there's going to be, right away conflict because he doesn't know who he is, where he is, how he got there. And he's staring at somebody else with a lightsaber. So
I wonder if this could be kind of the equivalent. Now, they're not going to be carbon copies or anything like that, but almost like in Trek, where you had sort of the mirror universe where things were inverted, things were a little bit different. So in this alternate universe, if we use that expression, that these could be Jedi, but they have orange lightsabers. They might not be quite as tried and true as the Jedi in the galaxy that we know. We also know that Filoni always liked populating his universe, Jim, with different types of Force users. He was very adamant that there were different ways to express and utilize the Force, not just Jedi and Sith. The Night Sisters come to mind. And there were other cultures and creatures and things throughout the Clone Wars and Rebels that Filoni would point to as being Force sensitive or something like that. So
Connor Ferguson's lighting up the chat. He's saying even the saber hilt looks medieval in the trailer. Baylan Skoll's saber hilt. And he reminds me of a bit of the Grail Knight in The Last Crusade. I could see you chose wisely.
Oh yeah, right.
That guy, yeah. A little bit. He seems a little more Baylan Skoll seems a little more in his prime, a little more battle ready. Remember the the Grail Knight in The Last Crusade? He went to pick up his sword. And I expect higher caliber of action coming from Ray Stevenson's character in
Yeah. But the other thing that he brings is he brings a certain elegance and not like just like Alec Guinness or Liam Neeson, but has that sort of mature, established look to him that I think is, when you think about a Liam, a Christopher Lee, an Alec Guinness, a very distinguished, mature, manly kind of vibe.
I don't know if you remember Ram Koda from the Force Unleashed video game. He kind of reminds me of Ram Koda a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've come across that guy, Ram Koda. But there's a similar vibe. And I sure do want a Baylan Skoll action figure. I hope you're listening, Hasbro. So,
with any luck, by 2028, you'll have one.
Yeah, right. Hey, they sure were ready for that Kenobi series, though. I mean,
they were
very timely fashion for that particular release. Why can't they do that all the time?
Well, they might. They might with Ahsoka. I was trying to think about when, if Ahsoka premieres in August. I mean, I think Toy Fair is now, I believe, a summer event. It's no longer a February, a winter event. So if in the chat, I think that's been a big change. But this is right for San Diego Comic-Con. Is that that's happening this year, I believe. Yeah, that's happening live. So we might see some announcements for something like that. They're always really reluctant, though, to show you any photos of the figures before the show premieres. They don't want to deal with spoilers and things like that. But they could probably give us they're going to do a repaint of the Rosario Dawson Ahsoka and put her in the
trainer.
Right, of course they got to put her back out there.
And also they make all these announcements on live streams. Hasbro does now.
Yeah.
And so it's, that kind of, it sort of sweeps away the necessity of doing it in a live format.
Right. At a convention. No, you're right. I mean, that was something they had to go to that because of COVID. The problem that I have with those live streams, and I got to look, that stuff's not easy. And I know that sometimes the people that host it and stuff, they take a lot of flack. Well, these are marketing people. They're not necessarily entertainers or broadcasters, although maybe all marketers are closet wannabe broadcasters, entertainers, this guy right here. But so they take some heat. The problem, though, is when you're doing a big live stream, you're sort of expecting something like a big announcement. And I have felt that some of the previous ones, it's like the bigger announcements are just like pipeline reveals. They'll show you a picture of the character from the movie or the TV show. And yeah, he's coming out or she's coming out in 6 months. So I just always feel like they're setting themselves up for sort of a letdown because of the way their schedule has to go and has to work.
Sometimes they reveal cool stuff, though. Yeah. And if you had a specific live stream that would be like, hey, tune in and we'll be showing you the new Kenobi stuff, or not Kenobi, Ahsoka stuff. And Rosario Dawson is going to be with us when we do it. They've done gimmicky things like that in the past.
I think Pedro has opened up a Mando figure. Like they've had a video of him opening up a Mando figure or something like that on a previous live stream. But yeah, I would love it if we could get some Ahsoka action figures in time for Christmas this year. That would be fantastic. I think it's doable.
Why not?
Why not? All right. How about Mark Hamill, our favorite Jedi Knight? He's my favorite Jedi Knight. I'll say that. Mark Hamill had a pretty lengthy profile done on him in Esquire magazine. It's on newsstands right now. Mark Hamill's long, strange trip. And there were a number of things that Jim jumped out at me. The writer, Brady Langman, I love the way he opens the piece. He says, maybe it's because Mark Hamill profiles often end and sometimes even begin with the interviewer confessing that Mark Hamill is their childhood hero. It's reasonable that the 71-year-old might have developed any manner of methods, workarounds, niceties, dodges, ducks, and rolls to prevent journalists from Luke Skywalkering him so hard that he can't even murmur in the privacy of his own skull the title of whatever he's promoting. Yeah, I mean, you know, when we got a chance to talk to him, you talked to him a couple times. I got a chance to talk to him one time, and it was hard to separate the fan from the podcaster, you know, the one that's trying to bring the action to the listeners, with someone like that who just brings you to your knees in terms of your all your childhood fantasies and dreams and things like that. I mean, he's one of those figures.
Oh, there's no question about that. Now, see, I had an advantage. The first time I interviewed Mark Hamill was in Japan, and I was there with official pics. And so I was spending a lot of time in their area, kind of behind the scenes. And I had a laptop and stuff, and I was editing my interviews and what have you there. And this guy comes in, and he looked like he had just rolled out of bed. And he was wearing a baseball hat and sunglasses, and he was acting all just like, oh, what's going on? What's happening? And he was like, who is this guy walking around back here acting like he owns the place? And the hat and glasses came off, and I went, holy smokes, it's Mark Hamill. Well, he does own the place. Right. But he just sat there and he would talk about, you know, just being surprised about things that he would see fans doing. And he was kind of new to the whole convention scene at that time. He had only done a couple of them. And it was just sort of funny. And he was making jokes about the characters and how they have names now and what he used to call them on the set. And he looked at me at one point. He goes, is it true that they named somebody calamari? And I'm like, yeah, your favorite Italian appetizer is now a Star Wars character and goes great with a squirt of lemon. But so I was around him a little bit, you know, and I didn't have really an in to interview him, except I ran into him in the bathroom, and it was just me and him. And we were in Japan, and they have high-tech stuff in Japan. I loved being there. I thought it was great. And they had those, you see them everywhere now, but they're the hand dryers in the bathroom where you sort of slide your hand into this like wedge thing, and then you're supposed to slowly pull it out, and your hands are dry, right? They've replaced that in a lot of places, the old blow dryers we used to use. And so me and Hamill are spotting one of these things for the very first time. It was like, what do they want us to do? They want us to put our hands in there? What's going on here? And we were both
problem solving this culture clash with Mark Hamill. It's amazing.
Well, I got him in. I caught him smoking a cigarette in the bathroom too when I walked in there too. And he looked very guilty as he chucked it into the toilet when I walked in there, and I didn't care.
Of course, we covered back when Mark was struggling with his giving up the smokes and was picking around at the in the ashtrays outside. I think one of the studios where he was doing voice work and grabbing the butts out of there, and maybe. Yeah. And I thought that was real weird. And Mac's like, yeah, been there, done that.
Hey, it's a brutal addiction. If anyone's struggling with cigarette smoking and you want some tips, float me a line, show@rebelforceradio.com. I can give you some tips on how to quit. It took me a long time, but I've been smoke free since 2006, January 20th, 2006.
That's awesome, man. And you did it without any program or anything like that, right? You didn't, I mean, you did it on your own.
Well, there might have been a hypnotist involved somewhere but I work in radio. I work in radio, you know?
Yeah.
So they come up with all these ideas, you know, hey, well, we'll just have Jimmy Mack try it. And so one of those events was a catalyst for me to actually quit smoking. I took it
see, now I'm not so proud of you. You got a hypnotist. I mean, anybody can just get hypnotized.
I can't be hypnotized. I can't be. But it gave me a starting point, you see.
Oh,
Where-
okay, that's fair.
You know,
Sure.
I couldn't, walking into it, I said, you have to go through with this. Even if you believe in hypnotists, don't believe in hypnotists, I don't care. I gotta quit smoking. I knew I did. And so it worked. But I know when you were just like, God, I can't believe Mark Hamill, he's picking these cigarette butts. That's so pathetic. I'm like, oh no, dude.
I thought he was hitting the skids, like he looked like a homeless guy.
You make these promises to yourself you won't break. Like, I will never buy a pack of cigarettes again. But that doesn't prevent you from picking up one that still has a third left in it that's sitting in the ashtray that some rando threw in there. So, I mean, you get into a tough spot. It's a tough addiction. And so I would understand anything like that. But, good on Mark. He finally did kick it, I believe. Okay, but so we're standing there in the bathroom in Japan, both staring at this newfangled hand dryer on the wall, wondering what's going to happen if we put our hands in there. Is it going to cook our hands? Is there some microwave that's going to dry off our hands? Well, we were relieved to see it was just hot air. And speaking of hot air, I said, hey, Mark, how about an interview? And he goes, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's that. All right. Yeah, sure. And I just thought he was going to blow it off. But sure enough, about an hour or two later, somebody came up to me and they're like, Mark Hamill will speak with you. Or they said, can you talk to Mark Hamill now? I said, I've been waiting my whole life to talk to Mark Hamill. Let's go. And the after effect of this was that Peter Mayhew, who had been ducking me for interviews for years prior to this, saw me go off with Mark Hamill. Then all of a sudden, it's like, Peter Mayhew will talk to you now. Can you talk to Peter? I'm like, yes, I can talk to Peter. This is great. And that actually turned into kind of a pleasant little relationship we had.
He's one of us. Yeah. I think that Peter realized at that point.
Well, those are a lot of great memories. Mark Hamill, he's a superstar, right? Both you and me have had our opportunities.
Yeah.
We're very blessed to be able to geek out and fanboy in front of him.
Yeah, and it's helpful too, as we've talked about before, that Mark is a fan of things, and that's really helpful. He talks a little bit about this. It's a great piece, by the way. Go over and check it out on Esquire, because he tells some stories that reveals some things that I didn't know. I knew he came from a military family. I didn't realize that he had a fairly tumultuous relationship with his father, who was very authoritarian and just didn't understand why he wasn't outgrowing these childish things, monsters, movies, sci-fi, little did he know. And Mark said that he was never really all that impressed, even with Star Wars, until he was asked to be on the Bob Hope Christmas special. And then the credibility happened. The old man was okay with him after that, Yeah, what? You're on Bob Hope. I mean, geez, you must really be something.
Now you made it, kid.
Right. You made it. I thought it was cool too that he's a big Curb Your Enthusiasm fan. He owns all 11 seasons on DVD. Says he's never missed an episode. Something else that was revealed. You think about Mark Hamill, who's a great comedic actor. He's got great timing. He does voices, all this stuff. He's a variety show dream. It's why he was so great on The Muppet Show. Why has he never been on SNL? Jim, had you heard that story before?
I think the bottom line is he's just never been asked.
Well, he has a theory about that. He goes, let me tell you about SNL. Because Carrie did it back in the day with the original cast. Because I was over the moon because it was my favorite show. Carrie was great on it. It made me really want to do it. But it's not one of those things where your agent calls and says, hey, book my client. Because they pretty much pick who they want to go for, who they want, and you go from there. He says, I was asked to host Fridays, which was ABC's answer to SNL. He goes, and I think, I'm not sure, just speculating, but I have a feeling that might have been a factor in me never being looked upon favorably by Lorne Michaels. So he went and hosted a competing show back. And if I remember right, when that show was on, it was came on when SNL was pretty vulnerable in the ratings. It was a difficult time in like the early 80s, early to mid 80s, after the original crew had left and they were sort of struggling. It's like the Julia Louis-Dreyfus years, you know.
Well, even after that, or before that, I should say.
Before that.
Yeah. But I watched Fridays. Larry David was on that show. Larry David was on that. Yeah. So was Michael Richards. You could catch some clips on YouTube. They've aged. Let's just say.
Yeah.
It's not as funny as I remember it being, but there are certain bits that are still conceptually classic, in my opinion, that came from Fridays. And so Mark did that. And I think I have seen that episode. I think I picked through it, maybe looking for something to talk about on the show. And I don't think I found much.
You know, I don't think I've ever seen the Carrie Fisher SNL like in its entirety. I may have seen a clip, but I can't even actually I can't even remember. I mean, was she was probably on there with Paul Simon? I'm guessing that was her husband at the time.
Yeah, I don't think that Paul was the musical guest at that.
No,
no. But Carrie, yeah, it's worth checking out. I mean, all the SNLs are up, I think, on Hulu, and you can punch it up and watch it.
Check that out.
Yeah. She does a musical number at the beginning that's kind of like, you know, a parody of Annette Funicello on the beach, and they sing a song, and yeah, it's a hoot.
Well, let's check that. I got to pursue it. I've never pursued it, but you know what you want. You want to know, what is he talking about with Star Wars? Well, of course, Star Wars comes up, and the writer does ask, would you go back? Would you be in Star Wars again? And he said that when he read The Last Jedi script, he said, I went, okay, well, that's it for me. He said, and then he started the process of disengaging from Star Wars, realizing that his time was over. And then, of course, along comes Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and they show him The Mandalorian, and he loved it. He loved Mandalorian. He said he was very impressed with it. And, but this is where this becomes kind of newsy. He said it's unlikely that he'll be back. And this is his take. He says it can't be cheap. He says he did say it was unusual to see herself like that, but the only real reason that he gives for the unlikelihood of his coming back is the cost. And he says
I think that's the author is inferring something, because I never saw a single quote from Mark saying he's not coming back, but I saw some headlines out there saying Mark Hamill never returning to Star Wars again.
Yeah, I don't know why he's going there where he's saying, you know, well, it can't be cheap. Luckily, the writer, you know, pushes a little further and says, well, there's these news stories that they're doing. You've got movies with Daisy Ridley. She's attempting to rebuild the Jedi Order. Could he come back as a Force ghost? And Mark says, and this is really the answer. He goes, one thing you learn working for Lucasfilm is everything is confidential. Everything is confidential. So if I were involved, I wouldn't be able to tell you. And if I were not involved, I wouldn't be able to tell you. So I don't know. We'll find out together, I guess.
Right.
So it's
he's not going to say a
non-answer
word.
answer.
He's out promoting this film called The Machine. It's a comedy. They say it's like Hangover-esque type humor.
Yeah.
Okay. Which makes me immediately want to see it. Mark Hamill in the Hangover-esque comedy
with Bert Kreischer.
I don't know who Bert is. Should I know Bert?
Should you know Bert?
Yeah, Bert Kreischer. Never heard that name before in my life.
He's a comedian. Gosh, let me get a picture. Bert Kreischer.
Bert Kreischer.
Oh, he's not who I thought he was. He's not who I thought he was. Yeah,
He's there to
stand-up
talk about
comedian.
this comedy he's doing with Bert Kreischer, whoever the hell that is.
Yeah.
And
Reality
they
TV host. He's not who I had someone completely different in mind who Bert Kreischer was. So,
but they start peppering him with Star Wars questions. And Mark knows what's going on because Mark is going to come back as Luke Skywalker, and everyone knows it. Now, the only thing is, though, Kathleen Kennedy did say when they started talking about this Ray film that's being written by Stephen who? Some guy named Steve is writing this.
Sorry, I wasn't ready for that question.
I'm not ready to talk about it, but I am anyway. But no, so they have
Steve,
this guy.
the guy that did the Peaky Blinders show. That guy, the Peaky Blinders guy.
Blinders, the Damon Lindelof project that when that he left that project. And there's some weird stuff coming up in a book called Burn It Down about Damon Lindelof. The book comes out next week. It's written by Maureen Ryan.
What?
Who's an entertainment writer. Yeah. Stuff about him running a very toxic, racist writer's room for Lost. And like lots of people are talking. Also in this book, there's going to be revelations about things going down at Lucasfilm. Insider info comes
What's
out
the name of
next
this
week.
book?
Burn It Down. Burn It Down.
Wow.
Burn It Down. By Maureen Ryan. I should give her the O. She hasn't earned it. Yeah, so that's it. That's interesting. That's all I know about the book, but excerpts were printed this week in Variety about the Damon Lindelof stuff.
Wow.
And it's damning. It's definitely damning.
Yeah, here it is. Burn It Down. Power, complicity, and a call for change in Hollywood. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And Maureen Ryan wrote an article about Lucasfilm about 6 years ago about their lack of diversity in the creative core and all of that stuff. So I imagine she's going to be following up more on that in this book. But I don't know. I mean, like, I don't care about stuff like that. I just want juicy details, you know, like I want the real, like, scandalous, juicy stuff. So we'll see what this book's all about. And if it's worth talking about on Rebel Force Radio, we will.
Yeah.
If it's just a bunch of smoke, we'll see right through it. But the Lindelof stuff that was printed this week and released, that seems kind of damaging and might provide a little insight as to why he is no longer associated with Lucasfilm.
Well, they don't want a scandal. They don't want a scandal.
They don't want a scandal when they might have their own scandal to deal with in the same book. So,
there's one other thing. There's one other thing in here that Mark says that I thought was pretty interesting, because apparently Mark must have his ear to the ground of fandom, because it's only within the deep recesses of fandom that you hear people talking about, hey, let's do a whole series of Luke and the original characters post Return of the Jedi. I never really see this being talked about in a magazine or any of the trades. But the writer brings it up, or at least Mark says, you know, people say, oh, now you're going to be able to do a whole series of Luke post Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. And Mark says, I don't think so. First of all, they don't need to tell those stories, but if they do, they should get an age-appropriate actor. And he maintains Luke had three things: a beginning, a middle, and an end. We've heard him say that before, right after he did the last of the sequel films. And of course, we found out that there was more to that middle part, and he was on Mando and Book of Boba Fett.
We know that Mark has also had his hand slapped by the corporate overlords for making social media comments and things like that over the years, you know, revealing information that he shouldn't have been revealing. Trailer's going to be on Monday Night Football. Whoops. So we don't, and Mark even famously said, what are they going to do? Fire me?
Right. Right.
But now it's like he wants to be fired. You know, he's trying to say that they should get an age appropriate actor. And I think he's onto something there. I mean, I think it's great to have Mark as a consultant. I think they should have done that for the sequel films, quite honestly, but they didn't. But I mean, just to get him there to, sort of see Mark's approach to the character. But even with the deep fake stuff and all of that, Mark doesn't have the same physical stature he had when he played Luke Skywalker. He doesn't move the same way. He's much older now. 40 years go off the clock. You note differences in just about everything you do.
Of course. The deep fake technology, it's cool. It's getting better and better. They're hiring people. They hired the YouTube guy that was doing it better than they were doing it at ILM. It's great, but I just don't want the storytelling in a universe as rich as Star Wars to be held back by things like that when, look at Ray Stevenson. What if that character doesn't have a natural end at the end of Ahsoka? What do you want them to do? Take a bunch of weird diversions and shortcuts in season 2 to work their way around it, or recast it? I'm not heartless, but my goodness, eventually you're gonna have to, at least until you can do it all in pixels. And let's face it, we are a ways away from that. You're always going to need a human being in there.
Well, recall how they explained the absence of Cara Dune in season 3 of The Mandalorian. Oh, she's just off on some mission somewhere.
Right.
So what if they say then, in season 2 of Ahsoka, Baylan Skoll has joined Cara Dune on a covert mission, and they will be, under radio silence. Like all of a sudden, like missions with Cara Dune suddenly become like
it's code.
When you're a kid and your dog dies, and you have to get rid of your dog, and where's Fluffy? Oh, we had to take Fluffy. He's off to live with a family at a farm where he's gonna have plenty of room to roam and all of that. Meanwhile, Fluffy's foaming at the mouth, and Foamy got the foamy. Fluffy got foamy, and so
they had to shoot him.
Farm. There's no farm. Yeah, there is no farm. So like Cara Dune becomes the farm for wayward dogs.
So so what happened to so and so? Oh, they're with Cara Dune now.
Dun dun dun. Oh, I mean, just might as well. That's like when people in Andor, like they start making noise about the Empire and they just disappear.
Yeah.
In the Bad Batch, where'd those troopers go? Those clone troopers. Oh yeah, they're with Cara Dune on a mission.
Right. Well, anyway, there's nothing conclusive here, but it's always great to get a profile piece on Mark Hamill, and it's sort of a celebration of this new part of his career. He's having a resurgence. He's getting to do all kinds of new and fun things, and just kind of doing what he wanted to do all along as an actor. And I think he's reached the age, Jim, you were talking about the physicality and the differences. He's reached the age where he can morph into different characters, and you don't immediately go, "Oh, Luke Skywalker." He has that ability, and he's probably always, to some degree, had that ability because of, despite his good looks and being the lead in Star Wars, he is kind of a character actor type actor. He can do those types of roles, those types of parts. So anyway, check it out. Esquire and Mark Hamill's Long Strange Trip.
I'm going to be checking out The Machine. That's what I want to see. That
apparently
Hangover comedy.
He's doing a lot of drugs, a lot of screen drugs in that movie. He plays Kreischer's character. He plays the dad. He plays the dad to the Bert Kreischer character, Arthur. And I haven't even seen a trailer for this thing. I wasn't even aware that it was coming, but it's certainly piqued my interest because, Mark Hamill's in it.
Well, it's in theaters now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I don't know nothing about it. Movies, they come and go now so fast. You know?
Well, I mean, how does a film like this compete with Guardians of the Galaxy and what's the other big movie that just came out?
I can't. By the way, I can't go see Guardians. I love the first two, but I heard that I don't do well with animals in danger, animals being abused or mistreated. I can't. I just don't. I don't like animals or kids in danger or whatever. And I guess that's a huge part of this movie. And so,
yes.
Yeah. Did you see it, Jim?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was gonna take my daughter, and she's like me, even more so. And I was like, I don't think I want to do this.
Not recommended. Not recommended.
Yeah, it's tough to watch from what I hear. There's certain parts.
Yes, there are certain parts that are tough to watch, and it's like a total bummer, just being in the theater watching some of that stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like, jeez. So I don't know. I have a mixed reaction to that Guardians film. Yeah, I'd just say mixed.
But I made the right call, not taking Bailey to see that. If she's squeamish about animals, okay, all right, good. Okay.
You made the right call, my friend. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, me, I'm an animal lover myself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The last thing I want to see is, and I mean, it's such fantasy and everything, but but the way it's presented, there is like a gritty reality to it that even though these little furry creatures are talking to each other and stuff, when pain gets inflicted on them, there's just something that makes it a little more difficult to swallow, at least for me.
Yeah.
And still like be entertained, I want to be uplifted by things.
Well, that's what always made those movies, for me, that's what always made them fun, was that they were more lighthearted. They played a lot for laughs. And this one, it feels, from what I'm hearing, it just sounds like a downer.
It goes from like these animals in cages being hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts away to like Drax doing a cartwheel down some suburban street. It's just like, whoa, man, whoa, They try to do things to ease the tension, but sometimes they fail miserably doing it because it's too jarring.
Right.
And it's just too hard to shake off, some of the imagery you were seeing earlier in the film. And I was in a theater that had it was fairly well occupied. And some of those moments that were meant to relieve the tension just did not cut through that crowd. The tension was thick in that crowd, it seemed like. So I don't know if that's what I'm looking for in a superhero film necessarily. And I'll just leave it at that. Like I said, I recommend everybody see it for themselves and make their own judgment. But if you're squeamish about watching animals getting hurt, then there are moments in this film that will have you weeping in your popcorn, I think. So I hope I'm not being too over the top in the way I'm talking about this. The people in the chat would let me know. So
of course, they'll let you know. They'll let you know. All right, let's move along to Pedro Pascal. And Jim, when I saw this on the rundown, I started thinking to myself, wait a minute. Did he have any helmetless scenes in season 3?
No.
And I realized he didn't have any scenes sans helmet in all of season 3. And that seems to be a topic that he's covering here.
We've been talking about this for a long time. I mean, we've noted that it's not Pedro. I mean, you could just tell.
Oh, sure. Yeah, right. But I couldn't remember if they went a whole season, even though it just wrapped. Like, gosh, did they go a whole season without showing his face? And they did.
No, season 1 had that moment where he gets burnt by the incinerator trooper, and IG-11 has to apply Bacta spray to his face.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, nobody can see me without my helmet on. He's like, I am not a person. I'm not alive. It doesn't matter. Taika Waititi did a much better job delivering the dialogue than I did right there.
Right.
And then in season 2, he had to take off the mask to get scanned by that Imperial computer.
He was with Bill Burr.
With Bill Burr.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the final episode,
Right.
He took off his helmet to
A
say
little
farewell.
Baby
to
Yoda
Grogu.
could touch him on the face.
Yeah,
Little
right.
touch.
Here, see, let me reenact that. All right.
Oh, look. Oh, look at his little hands reaching out. Oh, it's like I'm right back there. Season 2. Oh, wow. Oh, he gets aggressive once in a while there. Was that from Mainway Toys? That Baby Yoda? Is that who manufactured that? That's a deep cut for you there.
I think the same manufacturer as Chucky is who did that. Okay.
All right, Pedro Pascal. He's at a round table. He's there with Kieran Culkin. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's in Jeff Bridges is there. It's
Jeff Bridges.
Scene.
Wow.
There were other
eclectic
notables
group.
sitting there. There were other notables sitting there. I don't know what this is all about, but there it is. There's the group.
Yeah.
And so in this roundtable discussion, Pedro revealed that he spends very little time on the set of The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Do another show. Another big show with The Last of Us. Yeah.
Well, gosh, I think it was midway through season 1. We start hearing these rumors from insiders who say things. And Pedro Pascal's really, he doesn't want to wear the helmet anymore. He doesn't want to do this or that. And
he wants awards. There was talk. He was chasing Emmys.
Oh, yeah.
They were getting rules changed and stuff. And yeah.
Lucasfilm had to lobby to make it so voice actors could be considered nominees for an Emmy. And then there was a rumor going around, like, you'll notice a big shift in the storytelling midway through season 1. That's because Pedro Pascal is refusing to go on the set of The Mandalorian.
Oh no. He's out there with Kathleen Kennedy is banned from the set. Pedro Pascal won't go to the set. All kinds of drama.
But the struggle for him was real. Wearing the gear and the helmet. I think and I'm not talking about stunt work. I'm talking about getting up out of a chair and walking across a room and out a door.
Right.
Pedro couldn't even do that. So anytime you saw any sort of physicality coming from the character, anytime there was any movement or motion, then you were seeing Lateef Crowder or Brendan Wayne, stunt doubles. So, yeah, I think maybe like scenes in the ship where he's sitting there and Baby Yoda is playing with the little knob or flipping a switch or whatever. That may have been Pedro in those scenes. Like it would be a scene like that where the character is sitting or just standing there, immobile. But the second you got to start walking around, can't see.
Yeah, they make it look easy if they know what they're doing. A guy like Brandon Wayne, the stunt guys, they make it look easy. He alludes in that clip to maybe there was some experimentation, like maybe with the first season they were trying to figure out how much do they need him, how necessary is he, and I think by the time they get to season 3, they land on they don't need him at all. I mean, beyond the voiceover work.
It took a while, and I'm sure there was paperwork involved with that too, if you know what I mean. So,
I'm sure. But I tell you, I've always had this theory. Now, I've never received confirmation of it, but I have always believed that with as big a deal as they made of Captain Phasma going into The Force Awakens and how little she had to do in the subsequent films, I always thought that had to do with Gwendolyn Christie's struggles in the suit. Gwendolyn Christie was a recast. They had another actor that was cast as Captain Phasma. They swapped in Gwendolyn Christie, and I don't know if that was always the trajectory of the character or not, but screen time was diminished. Very little. I mean, the fight scene she had with Finn wasn't great at all in episode 8, but there was so much hype around the character that I always thought that, wow, was this a case of her just not being able to deliver what they had hoped she'd be able to deliver? And I thought of that when hearing Pedro Pascal talk about the realities of how difficult it is.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about Gwendolyn Christie. I know that she's had a lot of physicality in her roles and things like Game of Thrones and what have you. But I never heard anything about about her having any like real struggles with the Phasma stuff. But I mean, like a fight sequence, you almost would have to put in a stunt person, wouldn't you? I mean, but then why would you even cast the role? Why give Gwendolyn Christie that role in the first place?
All you ever saw was her eyeball.
Yeah, they must have intended for her to have some more helmetless scenes or something, because that sort of casting doesn't make sense. Just let a stunt person handle it.
Right.
Yeah, I never really thought of that. But Pedro, definitely the struggles, like I said, the struggles were real for him. And I don't think he was on the set at all in season 3. And then you see the appropriate change in the credits where Brendan and Lateef are being they're featured performers now. They're not they're part of the cast. They're not stunt doubles anymore that show up at the end of the credits. They're getting more marquee time because they've earned it. And it's the right thing to do for those guys. After Lucasfilm, with their reputation, they pretended Anthony Daniels was a robot for how long back in the 70s? I don't know.
They wouldn't let the poor guy talk.
Poor guy.
They tried to get the public to believe. Yeah, right. He's a feat of technology.
I mean, geez, even the Wizard of Oz, they didn't pretend like, the Tin Man was like actual Tin Man. Oh no, Ray Bolger? That's a real lion. We trained the lion to sing and dance. Come on. Crazy. I don't know what they were thinking back then, but it was the 70s.
Yeah,
things
right.
were weird.
Yeah.
I think normal things were weird in the 70s.
The Muppets were a thing. We had Jeff Yorks last week, and we were talking about it. It's like, the Muppets were never billed as being the combination of a piece of felt and puppeteers. The movie starred Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Rolf the dog. So might have been kind of that influence on George, where the characters were bigger and sort of transcended the magic of movie making and all of that. But
yeah, it's looked at more as a special effect than an actual performance by a human being sometimes.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Especially with the puppeteering is the same way. There's a lot of talk about why isn't Frank Oz getting nominated for an Oscar for the work he did on Yoda, but it was a group effort, obviously. And they're not looking at it on a performance level. They're looking at it as a special effect. So
right.
That's why that doesn't happen.
All right. Ming-Na Wen. Ming-Na Wen. One of my favorites. Love Ming-Na. Ming-Na, actually, timely. She was just given the Walk of Fame treatment earlier this week. She got her star on the Walk of Fame. Of course, Mulan. She's a Disney legend because of her work as Mulan. I didn't know that she got her start in soaps back in the 80s. She was on As the World Turns. Used to watch with my granny. I'd come home from kindergarten, watch As the World Turns.
My radar with Granny, TV with Granny. Oh, the fond memories. But she first came on my radar when she joined the cast of ER. That's when I started to become aware.
That's right. Like from the beginning, right? Like the original cast.
Well, I don't think she was an original cast member. No,
back in the Clooney days.
I segued into that show a little late, like toward the end of the Clooney era. That's when I started watching ER. And she was definitely on then.
Okay, so she was on with Clooney.
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, ER, there's pre-Clooney and post-Clooney.
Right.
I get it sometimes confused with Grey's Anatomy, which I believe is still on. It's been on for like 20 years.
This explains everything.
Oh,
Ming-Na she had a recurring role in the first season, but then she rejoined the show as a regular cast member in the 6th season.
Oh,
because I remember
really?
her making her debut, what seemed to me her debut on that show, but I guess she was on in parts of the first season.
It all makes sense now.
So that's probably when I started watching ER. It was like 5th or 6th season, somewhere in that.
End of the Clooney era.
Yeah.
We love Ming-Na Wen. Congratulations to her for getting her star on the Walk of Fame. She's fantastic. I follow her on Instagram. She's so motivational. Like this woman is, not that this matters to her, this woman is like 62 years old. She looks incredible. She works out all the time. Everything just seems to come naturally to her. She's just such an uplifting. If you need a little uplift in your social media feed, follow Ming-Na Wen. She will motivate you like you wouldn't believe. What a sweetheart. And
great. She also seems like she's very active too, you know.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Somebody 25 years younger than she should be, you know. And very positive. Very positive.
Yes.
Everyone loves Ming-Na. I'd like to see her come back in Book of Boba, season 2, should there be one. But I think there's still a future for Ming-Na in some Mando-verse show. She might even show up in Ahsoka, but she was out promoting this new animated Gremlins special.
Secrets of the Mogwai. It's a prequel animated series to Gremlins, and it sort of follows them, I think, over in China when they first appear. And so if you're a Gremlins fan, you check it out. I think it's on Netflix. It's carrying it.
I remember that original Gremlins movie. I rented that from a shop on VHS, and I never returned the tape. And the shop closed. I just remember the feeling of relief and also anger.
The late fee
when the shop closed. I was like, oh, thank God that shop's closed. I've had their video for how long? And then I started thinking to myself, is my holding onto this video? Did I put that shop under? Just by renting this video, never like someday he'll come in with those late fees and we'll be able to pay the lease for one more month.
I think you're giving yourself a lot of credit there, but hey, you got a VHS out of it. It only cost you $1.50 probably back then.
Yeah, I should have returned that. It's lazy. It had nothing to do with money. It was just sheer laziness. Drive all the way over there and drop off this day. But well, I've had it for so long now.
Do you still have it? You still have that VHS?
I might. Yeah, it might be in a box in my attic or my crawl space. Yeah. Or maybe I threw it away, you know, just out of shame.
Yeah.
A moment of shame. I can't hold on to this trophy of my failure. You know, that's my consumer warfare against this.
I'll be honest. I had a book.
VHS shop.
I had a book that never made its way back to my elementary school library. Yeah. It was a Star Trek pop-up book. Yeah, I'm throwing it back to the Trek for a minute, but it was a Star Trek pop-up book. And it was awesome because, like, you know, you pull the tabs and they would beam down to the planet and all that. And I remember looking at the card. Remember, you used to have to pull the card out and you'd sign your name on it in the back. And after checking this out 2 or 3 times, I realized no one else was checking out this book. No one. This is how you justify things when you're a kid. So you're never going to miss it.
I'm entitled.
Not proud. I'm not proud.
Well, of course, and then everyone knows about this.
Oh, yeah.
This is the original printing of the first novelization of the Star Wars film. Star Wars from the adventures of Luke Skywalker. And here on the back page, you can see the date stamped into the book. I was the first person to check it out. March 16th, I believe the year was 1978, maybe.
I can't see the year. I definitely see March 16th.
There is no year because they assumed I would bring it back that year.
Why put the year? Who's going to have it out that long? Well,
Right. They just needed to remind me for like 3 weeks into the future, not 30, 40, 50 years. But here it is. So yeah, never returned. Checked out from the school library. I'm going to burn in hell for all of this. But Ming-Na.
Yes, Ming-Na.
She talks to Collider about she doesn't have any knowledge about Book of Boba season 2, of course. No, she's not going to spill the beans on that because I got a big whoop-de-doo to announce that. But she does talk about what she would like to see should there be a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett.
I would like to see what they do with their what's the word? Like, he's this lord now of Tatooine, right? Mm-hmm. And he is managing to have some control, but he was trying to do it one way, and I'm not sure how effective it was. So, because he was trying to have a greater honor system, and I would love to see that he turns back to a bit more like what Boba Fett was, in also being able to maintain justice or accomplish what he needs to accomplish on Tatooine. But and then ultimately just to have a lot of fun battle scenes.
Wow, Jim. So not only is Tim Morrison out there sort of hinting around, I guess, or even more than hinting around, that he wished that there might have been a little bit more edge, a little more teeth to Boba Fett, but even Ming-Na is sort of pointing out the chinks in the armor, in the Beskar armor of the character, and the particular take that the direction that the show went. That's really interesting. It's one thing to hear it from Tem. It's another thing to hear it from Ming-Na, who didn't really have much to say about her character. She's looking out for the title character of Boba Fett.
The biggest difference between hearing it from Ming-Na as opposed to Tem is that Ming-Na knows what she's talking about. Tem beams down from whatever planet he lives on, shoots his scenes for Star Wars, and then beam me up, Scotty, and he's gone.
Ming-Na is a bona fide Star Wars fan.
That's right.
Yeah.
She understands the backbone of the character.
Yep.
And so she's looking for the gritty, the silent but deadly, take no prisoners kind of guy that Boba Fett had always been portrayed as being. So she's like, he's proven his point. He's been able to become a successful
daimyo.
Godfather.
Daimyo.
He's been through all this stuff with the Tuskens. He went on some sort of spiritual trip. And so now it's time for him to take care of business. But what we need to push him into that arena once again is a notable threat. Something serious, something that will shake him to the core and snap him out of this lethargic, lizard snorting lifestyle. He's back to soaking, lizard snorting, sitting on a throne.
Like Ming-Na says, he tried it one way, and it might be nice to see him try it a different way. And as you say, the setup there has to be some big threat to his power, his control. I would have liked to have seen those Hutts put up a little bit more fight.
Yeah.
He kind of got rid of them pretty easily.
They didn't see any real value in Tatooine.
No, they must not have.
They didn't see any value in it. And it was just, territory that they had inherited from Jabba. But they weren't going to fight for it. You want it, you have it, I think was kind of the way it sort of went down with him in the huts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to see, you know, full evolution for the character, incorporating the wisdom and knowledge he's picked up along the way as a spiritual Tusken and as a mafioso type gang lord, and apply that old Boba Fett edge to it and give him a purpose, give him something to fight against. Because, you know, in the series, he was largely seeking revenge, but there was no central antagonist in the Book of Boba Fett. And I think that ultimately hurt the show. There were guys, there were agitators.
It was like there were agitators, right? Annoyances to be taken out, but there was no
but
big
not a formidable antagonist.
Right.
And that's what the show needs. So, and I think that's what you need to get Boba Fett firing on all cylinders again, like we know he can. So, Ming-Na, you know, maybe giving us some hints about an edgier season 2 of Boba Fett. We'll see. We'll see. You know, again, she comes from the Mark Hamill school of, you know, even if I knew, I couldn't tell you. So let's find out together. Mark's always coming. His old thing he used to say would be just like, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. But people are, you know, he can't say that now. If people are asking, are you going to return as Luke Skywalker? For him to even say it's possible, that opens up a whole can of worms. So he can't reveal anything at this point.
Yeah.
Not even it's possible.
Yeah. And on the subject of Book of Boba Fett season 2, I don't think there's going to be a season 2. I don't think there's going to be a season 2 of Kenobi as much as I would like there to be. I think given the cuts that they're making and some of the revenue that they're trying to recoup through these cost-cutting measures, I just can't see these sort of tepid, lukewarm received, no pun intended, lukewarm received shows getting a green light for a second season. They're not going to see, the people making those decisions are not going to necessarily be seeing the potential for what a Boba Fett season 2 or a Kenobi season 2 could be. All they're going to do is look at what the numbers were. They're going to look at the salaries. They're going to look at the production costs, and they're going to make a judgment based on that. And I think solely based on that as a business decision, I can't see them going ahead with season 2 on either of those. Mando's the flagship show. We'll see how AHSOKA does, and hopefully it fares better because, you know, outside of Mando, none of these series have gotten additional seasons of the live action.
Do you ever see a time when Disney Plus could get blown up and Disney could go back to their old ways of just licensing out these series and stuff to other streamers? Go back, get in bed with Netflix once again, or is that just you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube?
Well, they're going to do that with some of their catalog, the 20th Century Fox catalog. I don't know if you saw, we didn't really talk about it here because it wasn't really impacting Star Wars much, but the Willow series, no longer on Disney Plus. They're going to license that out to one of these streamers who I don't know, but, you know, maybe a Netflix or something like, maybe a Crackle.
A Crackle. I've seen that channel pop up.
Has anybody ever watched Crackle? Anything on
Crackle? The hell is that, a candy bar?
I don't know. Maybe Willow season 1 will show up on Crackle. The only reason I knew about it was because that was the only place you could watch comedians in cars getting coffee, the Jerry Seinfeld show. That was when it first came on. I don't know. Someone died and they left Crackle with a lot of money and they used it to pay Jerry Seinfeld to do his big return to television.
I wonder who passed away. Is it Snap? Was it Pop? Who was it?
One of those elves. But isn't that interesting? I mean, we've had now a lot of live action Star Wars, and there's only one series that had the legs to have additional seasons so far. We'll see what happens.
Well, we know Andor's happening.
Well, here's why I don't count Andor. I don't count it because it was it was designed to be a 2-season series.
It was.
It wasn't
it already
like, wow, it was
green
really
light.
popular, so let's do it. Let's do another season.
Right. It already had the green light. And I think they were shooting for that with the Willow series, because the last thing you saw in the final episode was a hand placing a book up on a bookshelf, and it said Willow 1. And then there was a Willow 2 and a Willow 3 up on the shelf.
No way.
So-
Really?
So they were planning the flag
That's so
to do
sad.
more seasons. But
That's sad.
I mean,
Well, the show didn't. The show was not popular. It just wasn't.
never
It disappointed
finished
a lot of people.
I couldn't get myself to watch the final episode. Yeah. And so like now I'm in a headspace where I can do it, because it turned into a thing where I wasn't watching it to be entertained anymore. I was hate watching it to see how bad it could get, to see how bad the acting could get. That Erin Kellyman, man, somebody should send her to acting school, because I've never seen anybody just walk through a script like she does. Incredibly bad actor. And just the whole vibe of the show felt way off, just off. Like I've said, and a lot of people have also echoed this sentiment. It felt like a CW show. And that's not the vibe you want from Star Wars. It might work with some of these Marvel or DC shows, but that's not a vibe you want to apply to Star Wars or Lucasfilm or that kind of fantasy, that George Lucas inspired fantasy world. You don't want to see an Indiana Jones that's produced like it's CW ready. That's not what we want. And we'll never get that, thank God. There were some comments made by Kathy Kennedy this week about a potential future for Indiana Jones. And she's like, no, this is it for the character. That's it. We might explore something on television in the streaming realm. But
See,
no
that's
more.
another
No more.
one. You know, we were talking about recasting. If you got a great character, and believe me, I know Harrison Ford is not easily replaced, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. And you can do some, I still think you could do some really great stuff with Indiana Jones and animation. Honestly, I think you could do a
animation
stylized, something in the style of a Batman, the animated series, where you do kind of a noir kind of stylized period sort of thing. I think you could really do something cool and carry that character on. I just don't like that. The actor got old and, not doing it anymore.
Well, I mean, there's a certain bit of ownership that Harrison Ford should take of that role. I really don't see us looking at a 5th edition of this franchise had anybody else but Harrison Ford play the character. And that includes Tom Selleck, the original choice for Indiana Jones. If Selleck won the role, we would have gotten 2 Indiana Jones films, maybe 3, because George Lucas wanted to work in trilogies, but we certainly wouldn't be, maybe it would be easier to recast the role then. I was like, oh, we got this Indiana Jones franchise that Tom Selleck tanked back in the 80s. We could breathe new life into it. Who should we get? I don't know.
You remember when I think Selleck, he kind of chased indie type roles after that. I remember a movie he did called Quigley Down Under, and he was kind of an Indiana Jones Jones type. Poor guy. Shouldn't have passed on that one.
Did he take a pass, or was he compelled contractually to do Magnum PI? I think that was the case.
Oh, did he get Pierce Brosnan out of the big role?
Yeah.
I
think he did. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm just saying that I don't want to see any other character take on Indiana Jones.
You don't want another actor. No other actors. So Indiana Jones gone over.
Hard enough watching Alden Ehrenreich play Solo. I can't go through that again. I just
see. I think that has poisoned you. I think that's poisoned you. That you're so scarred by the Solo thing.
Well, it's Harrison Ford specifically,
right? Yeah.
We're talking about Mark Hamill was saying things like, "Yeah, get a different different actor to play Luke Skywalker." And I think that's possible, but I think there has to be a certain period of time that needs to pass before that even gets considered.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Yeah, I do. I think you're right. There does need to be a downtime. A down
and that's
period.
why Solo didn't work for a lot of people, is because Harrison Ford still owns the role of Han Solo. You can't just give it away.
Yeah.
You got Harrison Ford in The Force Awakens, and you got Alden in Solo, and then Harrison Ford's back again in Episode 9. It's like, wait a second now. We're just getting jerked around here. So that's how I feel. It's just such a slippery slope, man. And I don't want to see Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. That's the end of it. And it was funny. I was listening to some of the press conference for Dial of Destiny that happened in Cannes. And it was really interesting to listen to Harrison talk about age. And just, he's like, they're talking about de-aging and all this stuff. He's like, I don't really. Harrison is a guy who never looks back. He doesn't ever look back. He's like, de-aging, whatever. He's like, I'm really comfortable being the age I am right now. He's like, I'm really enjoying life. I don't care about. He goes, I don't want to be younger. He says that.
Yeah.
He's, I'm comfortable being my age and who I am. And he sees de-aging, and it's him younger, 40 years younger, getting punched in the face. That's, Mark even said when he was talking to Esquire in that interview, he thought he says it's unusual to see yourself like that. See the de-aged version of yourself.
And it's one thing to see old photographs or even old home movies or things like that, but when you see yourself in a new context as you used to look, that would be a trip, man.
Right. I mean, it can't be that automatic. I mean, here's something that I think is really interesting. Because when me and you grew up swank, people were walking around with cameras and stuff like that. People weren't. There are years of my life that are just completely undocumented, as far as like what I looked like. Complete years of my life, and that's very common for a Gen Xer or a baby boomer, somebody older, or even some millennials, I guess. But when I look at social media and I come across like Tyler, can we talk to Tyler about this? Because
is Tyler here?
He's like 28 or something. There he is.
Oh, that's not Tyler. There he is.
For example, now Tyler knows what I'm talking about. That because he's lived his life on social media. And you can go to a page and scroll back and see like junior high Tyler in photos.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And I've taken note of this. Like when I look at a 30-something's Facebook profile or something, somebody in their early 30s, I'm like, oh my God, they got photos going all the way back to the womb. That's wild. You have your whole life documented in front of you like that. But for, older folks in their 40s, 50s, 60s, like Mark, to see yourself being rejuxtaposed in this, like in modern filmmaking, while you're looking like you're 40 years younger, that might be like a real, mess your brains up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I think that this technology is evolving so quickly that we haven't evolved, I think, to contextualize it, to process it, to, it's weird. And we expect these actors to just adapt and, do all of this stuff. But you don't think that there's a real, potentially emotional toll with this sort of thing, or certainly it's an emotional experience for them.
I think it would mess with me like big time to a point, because we don't have that sort of experience with that. Like now, but somebody like Tyler's age, I think 40 years from now, you can de-age him and put him in an episode of RFR or something, and you'll be able to roll with it a lot better though, Tyler, because you've had photos taken of you throughout your whole life.
Yeah, don't spend your life in the rear view. I'm just gonna keep looking ahead. I don't want to look back at 12-year-old me or whatever. Even 28-year-old me when you guys are still doing this 20 years down the line. So
there'll be a thing that'll pop up in my feed, Facebook memories. And it's like, here's something you said 13 years ago. And I'm like, God, do I need to be seeing this today in the year 20?
Oh, they do put it in your face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or on the iPhone where they do the memories there, and they give you like a little slideshow with music. Like I'm looking at pictures of my kids from 10 years ago with sad music playing, and I'm sitting there at work and I like welling up with tears that these little people are no longer around. They're different. It's like, good Lord. Yeah, it is. It is interesting that the technology, I think, outpaces our abilities as human beings in some ways to grapple with it. Man,
you'll never be able to keep the past in the past anymore.
Yeah,
there is
no
past too. In many ways, I mean, I'm talking about Damon Lindelof earlier in the show. He's having to pay the price now for things that was going on in a writing room 15 years ago. A private, well, I mean, not private,
yeah,
it's, part of the corporate scene and everything, but still, I mean, the past can't stay in the past anymore. And this is something we're going to have to really adjust to, I think. And for a guy like Mark Hamill or Harrison Ford, you're going to see these movies and you're happy, you're still active and you're a professional and they're still hiring you to act in these things. But let's just make the entire 25 minutes of the Indiana Jones show, the Harrison Ford aged person actor that we really want to see.
Right. No one wants to see old Harrison Ford.
Yeah, that's what I'd be like. Harrison be like, man, I keep myself in shape. I rode a bicycle across a continent last year or something. My wife is 30 something years younger than me. I'm doing everything I can to keep myself young, but that's not good enough.
No, you got to re-sculpt my face for you to sit through a movie with me, make me look younger. Oh, man. Well, Tyler, everyone's loving the beard, by the way. I think they're all very happy to see it back and in full bloom. Getting a lot of, they said the beard game is strong, very Wookiee-like. A lot of comments to that. So hopefully we'll get some more calls. I do want to take one right now because it's very, very relevant. Someone wants to talk about Indy 5 as one of their many topics.
Hello?
Hey, Mariana, you're on with Rebel Force Radio. Hey.
Hello, Jimmy? Jason?
Yep. You got us both.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey, yeah. I'm sorry. I heard the beeping and I was like, wait.
No, it was my fault.
Guys,
I didn't hit the other.
Hi.
I have to hit a couple of buttons and I didn't hit all of them. Now they're all hit. So what you got?
Okay. It's like, hey, how are you guys? It's been
doing
a while since
great.
I called on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got something you want to say about Indiana Jones?
About Star Wars news.
What about Indiana
I'm sorry,
Jones?
I couldn't hear you, Jimmy.
Did you have something you want to say about
Well, I
Indiana
wanted to
Jones?
ask you guys a little. Yeah, I did. Okay, so well, it's actually regarding about the future Star Wars movies.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been apparently some rumblings and like maybe some reactions to not so very great reactions to Indy 5, according to what's happening in Cannes. And there's been some.
Yeah, how many?
That
Wait a minute. Hold on.
mangled.
Hold on 1 second. How many people have seen this movie?
Right. They showed it once
it was
in
shown
France.
at Cannes.
Right. Oh no, I know. It was shown one time. A room full of critics, as far as I know, and VIPs and things like that. But yet
Now
everyone on the internet,
account,
especially
and a
YouTube,
account,
has seen
they all
this.
On a movie they haven't seen. So
everyone's taking
just
a big
keep that in
dump
mind.
on it.
No.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because it hasn't had, from what I'm hearing about the not so great reception it got at Cannes, that now the YouTubers are reacting to this. They're like, see, we told you. And then because there's rumors that maybe the movie might not even break even, because they spent a lot of reshoots from what I heard on this film, that James Mangold's old Knights of the Old Republic film could be in jeopardy because of that. I mean, what do you guys think about all this? And also, I don't know if you guys heard this rumor, but did you know that apparently there's it's not been verified, but there's a rumor that they're trying to bring back both Mark and Hayden to the film with Ray. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, given the fact that, you know, maybe people want to see, you know, Luke and Anakin again, maybe helping Ray.
I think it'd be great.
Order. I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, when I was reading the interview with Mark Hamill, the only moment I really started to think, oh, this is the project where we could see Mark back in Star Wars, is the Ray movie. I think that makes a ton of sense for Mark to reappear. It also happens to be the only movie that I think is actually, well, I shouldn't say the only one. It's going to happen because of it's probably the furthest in the pipeline. The Filoni movie, I think it's going to happen, but it's still years and years away. I think they just grabbed him.
For sure.
They just grabbed him and said, "Hey, Dave, you're here. Why don't you?" And then Mangold too. You know, hey, you're here. Let's announce your movie.
I mean, remember in December 2020, Kathy Kennedy did say that there was some sort of big event that was going to bring together all of the storylines from the Mandoverse, and it was going to pay off in some big.
Yeah.
She didn't say what. She just said event, and this is really the first follow-up we've had on those comments she made 2.5 years ago. So, I don't think it's a case of just grabbing Filoni and saying, let's go with this. I think this is something that has had its foundation being, you know,
maybe the timing I think the timing of the announcement is a little odd, because I think there's a lot more track they need to lay in the Filoni-verse before they can start working on a movie.
Laying track, I think the Mangold film is the thing that is furthest away from development right now.
For sure.
I believe that the other two films are chugging along as much as they can chug right now.
Okay, but getting back to Indy 5, and you know, it's similar. We dealt with the same thing with Star Wars and all that, but look, the sequel trilogy, whether you love it or you hate it, it was very polarizing, and it created a lot of cynicism in people, in fans.
Oh, yeah.
For various reasons. And the problem is a lot of those people have fallen completely to the dark side. And it's easier to be cynical than it is
very likely not coming back.
Yeah, it's easier to be cynical. What the hell are you talking? Are you pointing at me? I'm not cynical.
I'm not.
Or on the dark side.
I was just sneeze.
I'm not. I know I'm not. It's a struggle sometimes, but I'm not falling over completely to the dark side. What frustrates me is that they haven't seen the movie. They're like, more than half of the critics that have reviewed this thing liked it. The critic score is over 60%.
Yeah.
And it's only been shown one time. So you have to assume that 60% of the people in that theater liked it. Okay, that's better than probably a lot of movies. So I don't know why that's just an assumption that the way that a lot of these armchair critics operate is they use the critics however they need to further their argument. So if the critics love it, they go, well, you know it's going to suck because those critics liked it. You know how they are. They don't, you know. And then if the critics pan it, they go, look, the critics hated it. I mean, of course it's terrible. So they kind of get it both ways. I want to see it myself. And here's the other thing. The Bond franchise has been going on for 60-some years. And we've taken the good with the bad, the bitter with the sweet with that series. It's reinvented itself many times. It's been cartoon, comic booky. It's been gritty and real. But I love all the James Bond movies. Every single one of them. If I flip it around on the TV and they're on, I'm stopping there. I don't need Indiana Jones to be a masterpiece to enjoy it. I love the character. I love the actor. I love the supporting cast that's in this movie. How bad does it need to be for me to say, oh, it was a complete waste of my time? I'm going to enjoy it. Unless it's absolutely terrible, I'm going to enjoy it. So I don't know what expectations do these people have for an Indiana Jones movie, for God's sake?
What was your review like for
actually,
Crystal
Jason,
Skull?
I want to.
Both of you. I'll ask you first, Mariana.
Well,
what did
see,
you
I
think
like-
of Crystal Skull? There's a little bit of a delay here. I know we're both
Crystal
struggling
Skull?
with
Oh,
that.
Yeah, there is. I really enjoyed the Crystal Skull. It was really fun to see Harrison Ford back as Indiana Jones, and it was also great to see Marion again as Karen Allen as Marion. I remember watching it with my mom and my grandparents, and we were all watching it on TV when we rented the DVD from Blockbuster. So that was a lot of fun. And also, believe it or not, I really enjoyed Shia LaBeouf's performance as Mud. And obviously, there's been a lot of polarizing.
It was 15 years ago. Mariana, if you don't mind my asking, how old were you 15 years ago when you saw this movie?
2009. What year did it come out? 2008, 2009?
It was, about that. Yeah.
Oh, I think I was in middle school.
Of course you
I was
loved
in middle
Mud.
school when it came out.
Of course you loved Mud. You should love Mud when you're in middle school. Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
I grew up with Shia LaBeouf. I grew up with him.
Right. The context and your age and all that stuff matters, and that's the thing that a lot of these professional haters online forget, is that context matters. The age that you are when you saw it, you can't. It was Todd Stashwick that was talking about, I don't care what you release, and this was a great point he made. I don't care how many sequels to A New Hope you make, it will never take away the magic, the thunderclap of 1977 and me in that theater seeing the original, no matter what you do. And I think that's where people need to recalibrate themselves. It's not going to take Raiders away from you, even if it isn't the best of the three. In my opinion, I don't think it's the best of the three. I'm a Last Crusade guy. I think Last Crusade's the best of the original Indiana Jones.
Oh, Raiders? Oh no, man.
No,
I like Temple of Doom.
Hey, there you go. Like Temple of Doom. Mariana, thank you very much for the call, and thanks for getting us all excited about Indiana Jones. I have my tickets. I've already pre-ordered. I got them for the whole family. I don't know if anyone's going to come with me, but I got the tickets.
No, I'm struggling because I can't get everyone to get their schedules together to make it happen.
Don't wait. Don't wait for them. They're going to be that way. Come on. The old man, how many movies come out that the old man wants to round up the whole family to see? It's not like all the time. They need to make time for you.
They need to make time for Dad.
Yes.
My God.
What's Father's Day is coming up? Oh, take the old man out to see the new Indiana Jones movie, for crying out loud.
It wasn't my idea to go see Guardians this week. That's all I'm saying. But I was there. Watching raccoons get tortured. Cute baby raccoons.
Oh, it's so sad.
Little furry baby raccoons.
Hey, let's do some pop culture. Can we do some pop culture while we're talking about cute baby raccoons?
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody. Man, I've been looking forward to this one. This one's been on the notes for a little while, and it is one of my all-time favorite Star Wars anythings when it comes to Star Wars outside of the context of Star Wars, and that is that amazing AFI tribute to George Lucas back from June in 2005. Where all the stars aligned and collided.
Yeah.
And Jim, apparently you pulled this, that the producer at the time, he's now the AFI president, Bob Ghazali, or Ghazal, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. He was on a Leonard Maltin podcast and actually talked about producing this George Lucas event.
Yeah, Leonard Maltin, the legendary film critic and reviewer and entertainment reporter. There he is right there, Leonard Maltin. He has a podcast called Maltin on Movies. Star Wars fans, of course, familiar with Leonard Maltin from the interviews he did with George Lucas on each of the THX VCR tapes that came out in the mid-90s. They all were prefaced with a pretty lengthy interview, sit down with Leonard Maltin and George Lucas, who at that time was emerging from his total life of reclusive lifestyle,
Right.
And now all of a sudden, to get an interview with him, it's a big deal. So they're going to have Leonard Maltin talk to George Lucas about his memories of the Star Wars original trilogy, and then little tidbits about the prequels, which were under production at that time. So it was big news.
Huge.
And of course, those VCR tapes sold there's it's a cliche to say hotcakes. They sold like hotcakes. I don't even call them hotcakes. I call them pancakes, but I'm still using the cliche. Those VCR tapes sold like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Or pancakes, what have you. So,
it was also the first time that you could get, they released box sets of the films on VHS prior to that, but they were really expensive. And that particular box, those THX boxes, was the first time that it was available more at like mass retail. You went into the department store and see a kiosk and you could grab them. That was really the first time that they were made super affordable.
Also the first time that the letterboxed versions of the films were made. And so
that was a trip,
the way after all those years of pan and scan, with parts of the frames being eliminated from our viewing, we were blown away by when those wide screens came out, because we were seeing a whole different movie now. And we were seeing characters tucked away in areas of sets that we didn't even know were there. So that's Leonard Maltin, and that is the life of VHS tape in the 90s. But now we're talking about this AFI tribute to George Lucas. That happened around 2006, if I remember correctly. And it was a big
June 2005.
2005.
That's when it was broadcast.
Show. Obviously, synced up with the release of the final film of the Star Wars saga. At that point, George was saying, that's it, the story's over with. And so people were starting to then pay tribute to his career as the Star Wars creator, and AFI was there with a whole tribute show to George Lucas, which was on network television. And the producer of that show is this guy, Bob Gazelle. And Bob talked to Leonard Maltin on his podcast he shared some behind the scenes stories about the production of this special, which you can see on YouTube if you look it up. I still have it on, VHS tape. And I taped myself off the network the day it aired. Here's Bob talking about, sharing a little story about the reunion of Harrison Ford and Chewbacca the Wookiee.
Here's my favorite part, and it's a story I've never told. Chewbacca was there, and it was Peter Mayhew, the original Chewbacca. Now, Harrison Ford is such a pro, he doesn't need to come to rehearsal. Harrison, you do this, you do this. And so he doesn't know who's in the Chewbacca outfit. During the show, ladies and gentlemen, Harrison Ford. So he comes out, the tableau is complete, the characters, everybody was there for George. And Harrison looks at Chewbacca and realizes just in the eyes that it might be Peter. And he says, "Is that you, buddy?" And Peter hugs him, and the two of them would not stop. It was just like this great moment that doesn't make air. In other words, it's like, that's a special thing, that the bond these people have, because they worked together for so long, but they came together for George.
Wow, I got all choked up, man. I got all choked up hearing that story. Especially with, Peter no longer with us. That's amazing. And that he saw it in the eyes. Of course, Peter's eyes, those beautiful blue eyes that he had. There was no mistake in those eyes. So, wow, that was something.
I wonder how many Chewbaccas Harrison Ford came across over the years.
You're not the real Chewbacca.
He'd be able to tell just by every time there'd be a Chewie there, he'd scope them out, and just to be a voice in Harrison Ford's head, So, that's definitely not him. Some cheap dime store Wookie. I want the real deal. But they finally got reused.
Is that you, buddy? It's like in the scene in Jabba's dungeon. Chewie, is that you? Chewie.
I can't see. I wonder. Harrison backstage, maybe he couldn't see that.
Yeah, probably not.
But that it's these little moments,
right?
That Peter received along the way on these TV shows that pay tribute to him and the character at the same time. Like when Chewie got a medal at the MTV Movie Awards.
Oh, right, of course.
Chewbacca didn't get a medal at the Yavin ceremony, and so they finally gave him his medal there. And then the part, Harrison, because I know Harrison, there was some function that Harrison was sitting at a table and Anthony Daniels was there, maybe wearing a tux. And he approached the table to say hi to Harrison, and Harrison started giving him his dinner order, thinking that Anthony was a waiter.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I do remember that.
Yes.
Did he tell us that? Did he tell us that on RFR?
Just want the prime rib. No, he would never share that story with me. I don't know where we heard it. Where did we hear that? Did somebody tell us that? Like
I think somebody might have told us that one. Yeah, that wasn't one of the yarns that he spun on RFR.
Prime rib. You got with the au jus. I want horseradish. I don't want any of that creamy stuff. I want the real stuff. All right. And so he's like, oh my, never. He storms off.
What does he think these waiters all walk around in gold sequined tuxedo jackets? I mean, wasn't that his clue?
What's wrong with
they
that?
got some funky outfits in this joint.
I don't think we're getting our food order. So this AFI tribute to George Lucas was really notable because it featured an opening sequence with William Shatner came out on the stage.
Oh, man.
And then, he discovered it was a Star Wars thing. And that was the joke,
Right.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought this was. And so then he did a big song and dance with stormtroopers and stuff. And so the producer of the show, Bob Gazelle, he told Leonard Maltin a story about working with William Shatner.
We opened the show with by inviting William Shatner to come out under the guise that he had been invited to a Star Trek convention. So when it was, ladies and gentlemen, William Shatner, that was the opening thing. The look on Spielberg, Harrison Ford, and George Lucas was like, they got this wrong. And he came out, and when I called him, this is totally to his credit, I called him in New York. I was nervous to make the pitch. And I said, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. And then as people realize you're not supposed to be there, stormtroopers are going to come out. And they're gonna haul you off, and you stop them and you say, "I can do Star Wars." And it's all on YouTube. You can watch it. And then he sings "I Did It My Way" in tribute to George, and it ends with a line of stormtroopers kick line behind him. So it became totally psychotic. And the best part was that Shatner said yes on the phone. He just said, "You bet, I'm in." Now later, he did a one-man show on Broadway that was about taking risks. And he tells that story, that he had no idea why he said yes, but you embrace what's uncomfortable at times and to create something special. And certainly he did. And George loved it, obviously.
Well, for our RFR listeners and viewers, I got a little special treat. I got it right here. If we can watch a little bit of it. This is...
Ladies and gentlemen,
Ladies and gentlemen, William Shatner.
Thank you.
Look at him.
Much.
They're all like, what?
Thank you.
Gary.
Star Trek changed everything. And aren't these conventions wonderful?
In a ballroom.
Warren Beatty. Shat's looking around. He's like, wait a minute. I see. He's looking at his notes.
Mr. Shatner, we want you to open the show. Star Wars?
Here come the Star Troopers to haul him
I
up.
can do Star Wars. I can do it.
George's kids.
George. It's George, isn't it? May I call you George?
Keep in mind, young George Lucas was watching Star Trek on TV back in the day. This has got to be a treat for him.
I really envy you. That
Well,
hair,
let's-
I just envy the hair.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So he goes into a version of My Way.
I'm sure you knew when you bit off more than you could chew, Baka. But through it all,
That's
when
Peter
there was doubt,
in the Chewbacca.
you ate it up and spit it out. You faced it all. And you stood tall. And you did it your way. But what is a man? What has he got? Not himself.
Oh, here comes
And he
the
has
kick
not.
line.
I'm doing it my way. To say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels.
I love the way he ends this.
The record shows you
Jazz
took
hand.
the blows, and you did it.
George
George
looks concerned.
Your
Looks
way.
slightly pissed off. Oh, now he's not.
Live long and prosper, George. Well, live long. You've already prospered enough. Thank you.
The reaction's not from Chewbacca.
Oh man, that's
that's
funny. Great stuff.
But,
The whole thing
So
is
I-
worth
I-
watching. It's
I believe
wonderful.
it's out there. Mhm.
Yeah, you can see the whole thing, and if for no other reason to see these three brought together again, Harrison, Carrie, and Mark. Boy, looking a lot younger. This is the reunion that we never got, folks, in the sequel trilogy. At least they did it for George's AFI tribute. They didn't do it for the, they only had 3 movies to make it happen. Well, 2, if you count, Carrie passing away after the second one. But not that I'm bitter. I'm not one of those bitter people. All right. Well, hey, we promised phone calls. We talked to Mariana. We got another. Let's take one more call here before we head out. We got what is this? Justin? Justin's on. Hey, Justin.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for hanging. You still with us?
When I thought about what you said about the Baylan Skoll being from an alternate universe or something, my theory is that maybe she's from the ancient Jedi times.
Oh, so maybe not a different universe, but maybe a different time.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay? You weren't okay. I went like different universe, different dimension. You were thinking
no.
like from the past.
Yes.
Ah, okay. All right.
Yeah. I think when the actor Ray Stevenson says, they come from different worlds.
Different worlds, yeah.
I don't think he means different
because
realities. I think different times. That's where I
Right.
think the world between
because
worlds.
it would be pretty. Yeah, it would be pretty interesting to see him be tricked by Thrawn into thinking that Ahsoka is some sort of dark sider or something.
Oh, like maybe he's manipulated.
Yeah,
That's
and then-
interesting. So he comes from a different time. He has no context or about who's who or what's what, and he could be manipulated by somebody like Thrawn into thinking that no, it's this Ahsoka, she's the enemy. That's an interesting idea. I like that.
Or Or
Yeah.
you know, I have one thing to say. There's a rumor going around that the name of the Filoni film could potentially be Heir of the Empire.
To the Empire.
Heir to the Empire. I'm sorry. Did I say of? Heir to.
Yeah.
Heir to the Empire, which was, of course, the name of the Timothy Zahn novel from 1991. In that novel, you had Grand Admiral Thrawn using a insane clone of a dead Jedi named Jor Sabaoth.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy, and so he carried on, whatever Thrawn's whims were, and he took orders from Thrawn, and with promises in place, from Thrawn to provide, I think, what the Jedi children to Sabaoth, because Leia was pregnant with the twins, and so I think that was going to be his big payoff, if I remember the story correctly. Could Baylan Skoll be sort of a stand-in character for Jorah Sabaoth? Maybe it's been determined that the Sabaoth character might be a little difficult to place into the continuity as it stands now. And so I mean that could be a case right there where he's
so sort of a proxy character for Sabaoth, because it's not going to be a literal interpretation, obviously, Heir to the Empire, but what Filoni is able to do and what he's done in the past is sort of borrow concepts, ideas, character types, and then sort of repackage them into something that is hopefully satisfying for the
And I think the jury is still out over whether or not you can create Force-sensitive clones. I think the jury is still out on that in this point of the timeline. Now, this whole Snoke thing, I don't quite understand how Snoke had Force abilities. Was it Snoke only had those abilities when the spirit of Palpatine was possessing him? We know that Moff Gideon, he was experimenting with creating Force-sensitive clones, but I think the jury's still out on that one. And it might be already determined by the Filoni Favreau creative crew that the Force abilities cannot be inherited by a cloned individual. Thus, you would need somebody else to fit that role of a Force-sensitive, a warrior with Force abilities that Thrawn can manipulate without him being a clone. So maybe Baylan Skoll is pulled out of the world between worlds to serve that role.
Could be. Of course, sadly, we don't have Ray Stevenson to continue in that role going into a Filoni film.
Yes. And of course, I don't want to sound selfish as a fan, I mean, my thoughts go out to his family and everything. He died at 58. That's way too young to pass away. Just he must have had some. I don't even want to speculate. But yeah, that's I don't want to forget the human element while we start.
Of course,
pining over what we're getting robbed of as fans. Meanwhile, there's a family out there who lost a beloved member, and so I don't want to belittle that. But on the other side of the coin too, I kind of briefly might have forgotten that Ray Stevenson had died, and I was thinking already about placing him in the Filoni film.
Right,
and that's on me. So
it's tragic all the way around. I mean, obviously. We're here to analyze current events and how they impact Star Wars and Star Wars fans, but certainly the personal loss is not lost on us. Thanks, Justin. There goes Justin from Kentucky. Thanks for that. And thank you all for hanging out with us on this very special live version of the After Show.
It's not the After Show. It's the weekly show.
It's the weekly show. Of course, it's the weekly show. And I don't know why the theme hasn't started. That's supposed to be the theme. But you know why? It's potted down. That's why. It's the regular show.
Mark Hamill did voice work on the regular show.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for hanging with us. We might do this from time to time. Just, take the podcast live like this. This was a lot of fun. The chat is fantastic. Really appreciate that. And the calls were great too. No mistake there. But it's always fun, doing these shows and having you guys in the chat and reacting to what we're talking about. I love it. I love it. So if you like this format, let us know. You can reach us at show@rebelforceradio.com or leave a comment in this video over on YouTube. As we mentioned at the top of the show, you can get more Rebel Force Radio in your life by going over to rebelforceradio.com and clicking on the Patreon banner in the right rail and signing up. Buck in your listening, Jimmy Mack says. Gets you in the door. You get those exclusive podcasts and all kinds of benefits there. If you would, please, if you're watching the show live, you're watching us on YouTube, check us out over there. Check out the whole channel. We've got archives going back 15 years. We talked about interviewing Mark Hamill. I think the Mark interviews are up there on YouTube.
Yeah, they're both up there.
Yeah, they're up there, including the one I had to do, not completely solo, but at a Star Wars Celebration, Jimmy Mack lost his voice. Yeah, that little extra that I put in his drink the night before worked out perfectly. I had Mark all to myself. No, Mac lost his voice, and so I
laryngitis the day I'm supposed to talk to Mark Hamill this morning.
But it's a great memory. No, it's a great it's a great memory. But those interviews are up there. Follow us on our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's a great way to get notified when we're going to do things like this, like take the show live, plus other content available for you in the Facebook group. I don't even know we have a Facebook page anymore. Everybody's over at the Facebook group. So make sure that you request to join the Rebel Force Radio Facebook group. It's really, really good community of fans. And you just got to answer a few questions. And if you're a regular listener to the show, you'll get in with no problem. The official website, as mentioned before, for all things and everything Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. Huge thanks to Tyler for hanging with us tonight. Tyler, this was sort of spontaneous. We sprung it on you, and you were right there for us, as you always are. So we appreciate that very, very much. People always get excited whenever we show Tyler. Oh, look, Tyler. Oh, his beard. Oh, Tyler. We love Tyler. Tyler, you just got back from Nashville. You were at ICC Con with some RFR regulars, some stalwarts like Sheldon Norton. Who else were you hanging with there in Nashville?
Kevin Lyle, Glenn Nelson, Chris Mock, Brian Klein.
Right. Some of the freaks there were the.
Yeah, there's a big crew, and I ran into so many RFR fans out there. It was kind of nuts. It's always cool running into you guys and having a quick chat. So thanks for stopping by and just saying hi.
Did you get recognized, Tyler? Did people say, "Are you Tyler?"
Yeah. Sometimes real early in the morning after a night of drinking, and I felt bad because I couldn't, had to figure out how I was gonna process this. But
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Hey, make sure if you see Tyler at a show, get up to him real early in the morning. Shake him around a little bit. Are you Tyler Page?
For sure.
It's awesome. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Glad you had a good time at ICC Con. It's a great convention, especially if you're a collector. Man, oh man, they've got the dealer room to beat all. Some of the photos that I was seeing, it was like it's the closest to being transported back to Children's Palace in 1982, 1983, because it's just racks of vintage figures hanging off the pegs. It's crazy.
Yeah,
the prices there aren't quite like Children's Palace.
No. No $1.99 figs there.
No, I don't think so.
Back in the day. Anyway, Ty, thanks, buddy. Appreciate you being here for us. Really appreciate it. Well, that'll do it. We'd love to have you subscribe to the podcast if you would. Rebel Force Radio is available on your favorite podcatcher of choice. Please subscribe. It makes it very easy for you. The show comes to you each and every week. And also would love to have you leave us a review. The reviews always help, whether it be on YouTube or on podcast. Just have one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
We'll be back next week with more Rebel Force Radio. But until then, for RFR, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.